Hello, hello, welcome to Druidcraft. I'm Adele, and I think polar bears are pretty cool. Have you ever met the Kodan in Guild Wars 2, or read about the armored bears in the His Dark Materials trilogy and thought it would be neat to play as a polar bear person in Dungeons & Dragons? I have! What could be more awesome than being a lone warrior toughened up by the icy wastes? If you think about it, that's not too different from the lives of real-life polar bears. In this video, I wanted to share a summary of my research on polar bears and use it to design my own playable polar bear race for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I'm calling these people the Frost Arthen. Let's get started! Polar bears live exclusively in the Arctic Circle. As such, they are built for the Arctic climate and terrain. They're the largest bear on the planet, and their limbs are proportionally shorter and stockier compared to other bear species. They also have the tiniest tails of all bears. Their fur, skin, and fat provide layers upon layers of insulation. They are built to retain heat. They spend much of the year traversing sea ice, which they have little trouble navigating. Their claws are designed to dig into the slippery ice and give them traction. They have built-in ice traction cleats. I don't think anyone could argue against making the Frost Arthen resistant to cold damage. I'm going to go a step further and give them the benefits of wearing boots of the Winterlands, which lets them ignore difficult terrain caused by ice and snow, and also ignore temperatures as low as minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Sure, I'm giving them an uncommon attunement requiring item for free, but I don't think that's an issue. For one thing, it makes sense, and unless you're playing Rime of the Frost Maiden or an adventure into Iselcross, how often are you going into areas with sub-zero temperatures in your games? To counteract this ability, you could include a detriment to being in hot climates. Polar bears don't do well in the wild outside the Arctic Circle. The polar bear's strongest sense is its smell, which they rely upon to find prey and potential mates. This leads them over great distances, especially in the darkness of winter. In addition, they're able to smell the breath of their prey, seals, under several feet of ice. For this reason, I've given them the keen smell trait. Dark vision too, because polar bears have a layer of tapetum lucidum behind their retina, useful in the darkness of winter. Now, in order to reach the seals under several feet of ice, polar bears use their sheer size and strength to break through the ice and grab at their prey. They take hold with a bite force of 1,200 pounds per square inches, which is the strongest of all bears, and effortlessly drag them out. A fully grown male could even drag a bull walrus, which can weigh up to a whopping 2 tons. They absolutely have the powerful build trait. The downside to being so big and strong is they're rather slow. On land, almost everything they hunt can outrun them, except seals and us. For this reason, polar bears are ambush hunters, relying on their strong sense of smell to notice their prey before they notice them. So, let's reduce their movement speed to 25 feet, but also include the dwarf's ability to ignore the speed reduction penalty of heavy armor. While they are classified as marine mammals and they regularly swim great distances, I wouldn't give them a swimming speed. Everything can easily outswim them, except us. If a pursued seal is able to dive back into the water, the polar bear has little chance of catching it. Their hunts are rarely successful. We all know bears hibernate in winter, but what about polar bears? Believe it or not, most bear species do not hibernate. Pandas, spectacled bears, sun bears, and sloth bears live in regions where food is available year-round. Polar bears have a similar situation. They rely on the sea ice that forms, in winter, to reach their prey. However, if a female polar bear is pregnant, that's a different story. Polar bears hibernate for the sole purpose of giving birth. She'll dig a maternity den in the snow or permafrost during the fall, give birth between November and February, and then emerge with her cubs between February and April. That said, you could argue that Frost Arthen have the ability to hibernate, but don't need to or choose not to. How could you make this into a useful trait? I like the idea of hibernation being used to gain HP back from short rests more effectively than other races, taking, if you will, a power nap. I know that's not what hibernation actually is, but I'm having fun. Do bear in mind, that means your character is completely unaware of what's happening around them. If your character is in a solo session, take precautions when using this ability. Now for the ability scores, I went back and forth if they should be strength or constitution based, imagining the Frost Arthen as barbarians. But what if they had a boost to wisdom? They have excellent perception, right? This also provides the opportunity for rangers, clerics, or druids to play as Frost Arthen. Age-wise, I made them comparable to humans. Size is medium, but they're one of the taller and heavier races. All in all, I think that what we have so far is balanced. You could add natural weapons, but, well, they're kinda stacked enough already, so I'm not including them. I can't stop you, though. So now we have all the stats figured out. Awesome. Now we need to figure out who your character is. How can the lifestyle of polar bears influence the culture the Frost Arthen come from? I'm only going to touch on a few basic things. A polar bear's primary source of food is seal fat, but they can also eat berries, eggs, kelp, whatever they can get a hold of over the summer. Given the climate that they come from, I don't think that they would have the opportunity to develop an agricultural system, unless they had help from magic or advanced technology. Summer doesn't last long enough in the Arctic. I think that they would be a hunter-gatherer society, or maybe pastoral herders of reindeer and musk oxen. Maybe they found a way to domesticate walruses. Just like all other bears, polar bears are solitary. After leaving their mother, siblings will only stay together for a short time before setting off on their own. Thereafter, they journey across the ice alone, looking for food, encountering other polar bears on occasion. They either ignore each other, fight over food, or the right to mate. Very, very rarely, male polar bears have been observed traveling, feeding, playing, and even napping together. Polar bears do gather in groups, however. In summer, when they're stuck on land eating berries and eggs until the ice returns, or at plentiful sources of food, such as at the carcass of a beached whale, or at our garbage. I like the idea of the Frost Arthen living in small family groups or alone, with loose networks of friendships and rivalries across territories. When families meet each other out on the ice for the first time, they share a deep, deep mistrust of one another. Resources are limited in the Arctic, and petty theft could spell death for the whole family. Only if they prove themselves to be good-natured will families share supplies and information. I imagine that having a family out on the ice is really scary. You're all alone and could be attacked by other Frost Arthen, winter wolves, or worse. Do the Frost Arthen have permanent homes where they keep young children until they're old enough to trek the ice and defend themselves? Or do they keep them close, but have strict rules about what they can and cannot do? With all the information I've shared, and the ideas I've speculated upon, I've come up with 3 cultural values that I believe most Frost Arthen live by. The first is self-sufficiency. They live in a harsh world, and if you can't pull your own weight, you will not last long. I think that the pressure is high on parents to make sure that their children learn as much as they can and become strong, not just because they value self-sufficiency, but out of fear that if their child becomes separated or sets out on their own, they might not make it. Next is respect. Not just respect for other Arthen and the skills they provide, or your elders and the knowledge they pass down, but also respect for the forces of nature. You might be the mightiest warrior out on the ice, but you are no match for the wrath of winter. I believe the core of the Arthen culture is family. They trust few outsiders, believing they can only rely on one another. A mother or father would give their lives to protect their children. Even if they're living alone, they've remembered the lessons their elders taught them, and the feeling of safety and love in a cold, dark world. Thank you for watching. If you were to play as a Frost Arthen, which class would you choose? Let me know in the comments below. As a treat, here are a few plot hooks your character's background could be based upon. Bye for now.